Okay, again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. It's summertime, middle of vacations, picnics. Some folks were in the dunk tank today, and so it's nice to see everybody here. Also, when I look around the audience here, I see a lot of fire chiefs from area fire departments. Thank you for coming tonight. Joe Sobczak of KDSTV.com. For those who are not familiar, it's a website and video service. Joe goes around and takes videos of various incidents in the Tri-County area. He has a website that he puts it on for emergency personnel and for the general public to see. Joe also provides the news video in this area, Tri-County area, that you see on the local television stations in the Pittsburgh market and the Youngstown television market. So he was gracious enough to do some recording here of this banquet for Connie. And also he put a little video together that Connie's going to kind of narrate a little bit.
The video you're about to see is a real interesting video. A couple of years ago, 2006, I believe, we had a fire in our downtown business district right off of the railroad tracks. And it was a real unique fire. I had been there, or we had been there several times in the previous weeks with fires at that location. And we knew that it was going to burn. We just didn't know when. And so we pre-planned it so that we had it set up as to what everybody was going to do. This engine is going here and this engine is going there, and we're going to flow water and we're going to try to protect what we could. And it just so happened that a guy who hadn't worked for a couple weeks came to work at 11 o'clock. And this pre-plan, which was 4 or 5 colors, this truck's going here, this truck's going there, and he read that pre-plan. Within an hour after he got done reading it, the phone rang, and that place was on fire. And that place was not only on fire, it was a tremendous fire. It was a building that was constructed in the early 1900s. It was wood frame. It was loaded with wood from the hotel at 5th Street that was torn down in 1925 to build the high school. And so it was a very hot fire. We probably called more departments in than we have had in the past. And it was actually a very hot fire. In fact, I really didn't know how hot it was because I was running the air conditioning in the car. And until a householder told me how hot it was, I really didn't realize it. But our object from the start was to prevent the fire from going north. Their house was about 15 feet away. And our object was to prevent that house from catching on fire, and we succeeded. It took a lot of work, but I'll turn the video on and maybe say a few things with it. This, for those of you who don't realize, it's the McCandless property. It was owned by B.J. McCandless and his son and daughter who lived in the house adjacent to it. Basically, this is what it looked like when we responded. This is one of those ones that we had to get water from across the railroad tracks. Sam, you laid from St. Agatha Church.
Correct.
Right? The pre-plan, the St. Agatha Church is on 5th Street, and he laid up Spring Avenue in Keystone Way into the back of the VFW club, and they supplied the aerial. This building also housed the father was an architect, and he designed most of the schools in Lawrence, Mercer, and Butler counties from the early 20s until the 50s, and he had the drawings hanging on racks in this building. When they were starting to tear it down, I got a call one day at lunchtime. They found some mercury in it, and we utilized a kit from the hospital to start to dispose of it. And then the Department of Environmental Protection got involved, and actually we turned it over to them. Anytime you get involved with that, it's additional paperwork and all that, and we were able to avoid that by them handling the whole thing. But, you know, we used to play with mercury when we were kids. We didn't think there was anything wrong. As you can see, there are many departments represented here. And basically, that's the way we've worked for many years in this area.
Tonight we have quite a few folks here that would like to get up and say a few words, and I'd like to start tonight off with one of Connie's longtime assistant fire chiefs, Denny Baru.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank Connie for his years of service and dedication and friendship in this business. We've become very good friends. I've learned a lot from Connie over the years, and we as a community have benefited greatly by his wisdom and his knowledge, and having the ability to make snap decisions at a very quick moment. A lot of people know Connie, but a lot of people don't know Connie. There's a side of Connie people don't always get to see, the things he does outside of the fire department. Connie has a lot of friends that he helps take care of that are up in years, and it's a great thing to have people out there that care that much to devote their time to do that kind of thing for the elderly in our community. So I appreciate Connie for doing that service as a humanitarian. But it's been, for me, 34 years I've served with Connie, and it's been 34 good years of friendship, involvement in the community. Some of the things that Connie's done over the years, starting our smoke detector program. Unfortunately, it took the death of some young children. We knew that the smoke detectors were important. Connie took it upon himself to start that program, and I'm sure he'll touch base on that later as to how many we've put in the community to date so far. It's been a great lifesaver for several people since that time, and it will continue to save lives in the future. So for that, I thank him on behalf of me as a firefighter, but also on behalf as me as a friend and a community member. Connie's been a great guy to work with, a great guy to work for. He always had a level head, always knew what to do and when to do it, and what not to do and when to do it. And that's a fine line you have to walk sometimes in the fire service. But I'm not going to take too much of your time this evening. I just want to thank Connie for his friendship, his dedicated service, and everything he does in the community. One other thing I want to touch base on is a number of years ago, the Kiwanis have their annual fund drive. And they approached Connie and said, is there anything the fire department can do that we could give away in the fund drive? And Connie said, well, how about we have a birthday party for a young child? So Connie set it up all on his own, got a few of us at the department. I think Todd still does them today, along with Connie. And what he did was we set up a birthday party with a cake and balloons and pop and potato chips, but then he geared a program that lasts about 45 minutes. And it was geared not only to the children, but to the adults. And it was everything about fire safety. It was a great tool, it was a great thing, and it ended up being a fundraiser. I mean, it didn't pay the electric bill monthly, but it did help generate dollars to the fire department so we can continue to buy more equipment as time went on. So for that, on behalf of myself, my family, Mary Ann, I'd like to thank you, Connie, for all your time.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
Thank you, Danny. We have a few fire chiefs here that will like to say a few words. I'd like to start off with the Wurtemburg-Perry Township Volunteer Fire Department Fire Chief, Mark McDivitt.
Before I start, some of my firemen, which happen to be Connie's relatives, are going to present him with a gift from the fire department.
I pulled the short straw, so I'm the one that's got to talk. The fire service is a tradition. As you see, there's 3 generations here of MacDonalds. They told us that we had to do this because we are members and relatives. from the Wurtemberg Fire Department, thank you.
Here, sir.
You need the knife because I sealed the top at work.
Every roll that was in on this.
You can see we use mutual aid in a lot of ways. Thanks.
This isn't my strong point here. BS is, organized speaking is not really what I'm into. But when I was asked to speak, I gladly did. Connie and I go back a long way also. And I thought of things, and when I think of Connie, I think of his love for the fire service, not just Ellwood Fire Department, but he's been around since he was old enough to walk around the streets of Ellwood. He truly cares about the fire service. Even, calls from him to go to Pittsburgh and spend a day to pay our respects to fallen firefighters that we didn't know, but they were brother firemen. And he cared about all fire service. His involvement with all the county organizations and whatnot. But what truly came to me, and I thought would be a prime and an example, and I'll never forget this, maybe 12, 13 years ago, he came to me and he says, I want to buy a thermal imaging camera. And I can tell you standing here that Ellwood and the support he had from the Ellwood Borough and the council, he could have bought that thermal camera. But he wanted everybody to have one. And I can also tell you, sure as I'm standing here, Wurtemberg-Perry could not afford an $18,000 camera. I don't think Wayne Township could, and I'm not sure Franklin Township could. That wasn't good enough for Connie. He wanted us all to have them. He wanted a joint purchase to where we could all save money. And by God, we went out and did it. He did the most of it. He'd call and say, hey, I got to talk to the Calvin Church today. Can you bring anybody? And we'd send 2 or 3 over and we'd give a demonstration. And we went through it and we went through it and we brought all kind of models in and we decided what we wanted. And it ended up that Wurtemberg-Perry and everybody, maybe for $3,000, $4,000. It escapes me at this time. But the bottom line is, he cared. We were all going to use them together. We're all one, and we all did. But he did not. He drug us poor townships up with his resolve, and we all got them, and they all were life-saving. And they benefited everybody in the community, and that's what I remember. There's a lot of other things, and there's a lot of good times, but it wasn't just about him. It wasn't just about Ellwood. My goodness, they could have bought one in a heartbeat. But he took the time, and it took 9, 10 months, a year. We fundraised, and he asked, and we did demonstrations. And the bottom line is that's the kind of guy he was, and he brought us up to a level that we couldn't achieve, because he cared about the fire service and the firemen he fought fire with, not just themselves and the Ellwood Fire Department. And I truly will remember that forever, and it goes on and on, all the practices and all the joint things we did. But that example, to me, struck home, because I'm here to tell you, it was because of him and his involvement and his caring that we all got them. They've gone by the wayside now, but we've bought new ones, we've bought better ones. But the thing is, for the last 15 years, this area has been better served in just that one small capacity because he cared, and we went out and we did it as a joint, and we all got those. And that's just what I want to thank him for, and just an example of what he's about. Like I say, it's the fire service, not just Connie and Ellwood City. And he will truly be missed in that realm. He was great, and I hope he stays active. I know if he's ever bored, he can come out here to Wurtemburg-Perry. We'll hook him up with some stuff to do. Thanks, Connie.
Thank you, Mark. One of the townships that borders on the south side of Ellwood City is North Swickley Township, and I'd like to welcome Fire Chief Mark Sutherland at this time.
My relationship with Connie grew through many years. It basically started with not really understanding or knowing who he was, but as a young officer of a fire department, I would occasionally come down to Ellwood City. I always enjoyed breakfast. My business partner liked to come down and we'd discuss some business. And we'd walk into a restaurant and there would always be a table reserved. And I'd ask the owner, well, who's that for? And they said, well, that's for Connie MacDonald. I said, wow, that must be pretty nice. So, and again, I always like going to different ones. So, a couple weeks would go by, we'd come down to another restaurant and for breakfast, and table reserved again. I said, well, who's that for? And that's reserved for Connie. I said, man, that guy must have a really nice job. So, and again, I don't come every week, but a couple weeks go by, we go down for another business meeting at a different restaurant, and again, there's a reserved table. And then I just start looking around. I'm looking at the ceiling, I'm looking at the ground, I'm looking in the kitchen, and my friend Alan goes, well, what are you looking for? He says, I'm looking for code violations. He goes, why are you looking for code violations? And I go, when you have a political job like Connie, there's one or two reasons you get a reserved table. If I called down here and asked even for a reservation, they're going to tell me they don't take reservations. He has a reserved table. And no offense, Jared, maybe you want to cover your ears, but there's one or two reasons you get a reserved table. One, either you earned a lot of in your community through hard work, dedication, and strong leadership, or two, you take political favors. And I wasn't quite sure at first, but as we grew as friends, and as I worked alongside Connie through my many years, I've learned it is definitely his strong leadership and his dedication to his community and the fire service. So I want to thank you, Connie, for all that, and I want to thank you for what you've done for your community. And on behalf of the North Swickley Fire Department, we have a plaque that says, Chief Connie MacDonald, in appreciation of your 45 years of dedicated service to the Ellwood City Fire Department, you have been an asset and friend to our community. Congratulations on your retirement, the members of the North Swickley Volunteer Fire Department.
Thank you.
And I just want to add a quick side note, talk about somebody that's politically connected. I made a quick phone call to the White House, and as soon as I told them it was for Connie MacDonald, they put me right through to Barack. You will be receiving an accommodation from the White House signed by Barack Obama, and he also said he would take care of the accommodation from the federal rep. So you will be receiving those. They will be in a couple of weeks. I'm sorry I don't have them tonight. Thanks, Connie.
Thank you, Mark. I think I was going to save my fire chief for a couple of folks later, but I noticed his glasses on top of his head is starting to come down, and when he looks over his glasses at you, you're in trouble. So, and he's been kind of looking my way. So at this time, I'd like to have Fire Chief Steve Bailey of Franklin Township.
I've spent 25 years as chief out at our department. a little hiatus in the middle. Probably the bulk of that time's been spent working alongside Connie. Actually, I worked for Connie. When he first took over, I was actually a part-timer in the borough. I wasn't able to stay with that very long just because of the way my career had advanced where I was at, but I did have at least 5 years there, and it was good. I came in under Denny was the chief that took over and I come in under Denny, and then Connie took over. So as an employee and then as a peer, we had the pleasure of working together over a long career here. A couple, I didn't get many calls, which was a good thing while I was in town there, but I had a couple, and I started off one as an engineer and ended up on the nozzle with Connie as the engineer, because there was, I think, 3 of us, and Denny was the other one. So, but that's how it works, and that's why it's worked so many years for the borough. When they went to the fight to keep a paid man on the station, the fight to keep a paid chief in that borough has been fought by all of us over the years, and it pays dividends when you get someone in there like Connie has taken on that job and made more out of it than just being a fire chief. I've been a fire chief. I say it, my title, and I can't even say 50 cents get you a cup of coffee, because it's probably $1 now, but gets you, so much. Everybody says, "Oh, you're fire chief." Yeah, in little podunk Franklin Township. Busy enough to keep me busy, but nothing that I could do, on the level of what they have to do in the borough. And Connie took that on, and he did a phenomenal job. Mark touched on a lot of the points that probably all of us have to remember. And Denny, the smoke detector projects, dragging us all into that, getting all the municipalities involved. It would be easy just to say, "You know what, I'm the fire chief in Ellwood City, let's just take care of Ellwood City." But it's a measure of him as a person and as a leader to drag us all into it and call our station and say, "Hey, there's 2 or 3 residents in Franklin Township that need smoke detectors installed." And if he couldn't get us, he sent his guys out to do it. But the whole community has benefited from his leadership and his ability. And when you talk to other areas and other departments, and I have had the pleasure of doing that, I say, we're a merged department, we just haven't changed the name. And that's been for many years. And it's been our job to kind of protect that. Probably one of the things that took me a long time to adjust as a fire chief, because I took it on as a really young age, was learning my role and responsibility. And then having someone like Connie over the years that I had that job helped me understand that my job's not to be inside. I trashed 2 white hats in the first probably 5 years that I had the job. I'm always inside. I appreciate the time that I spent working for him, and I appreciate the time I spent working with him. So, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank him for the time that he nominated me for the Outstanding Young Person of the Year for Ellwood City, just in the nick of time, because I got it at 39, and 40 was the cutoff. But yeah, it's been an honor and a privilege to have spent time with him and learn from him. And I think probably one of the things that he helped me with was organization. And you can ask Mark and Wes. When we needed chiefs meetings done, the agendas were done, we had the meetings called. It helped us focus our mutual aid trainings. We made sure that every summer he would say, "Okay, who's taking this date, who's taking this date, who's taking this date?" That's why it works. Organization, getting us out there, making us work together, keeping things, on an even keel. We all know each other. We all know the trucks. We can work mixed crews because our guys know each other. That's why it works. And it takes a good leader. We all have roles and responsibilities within our department, but then it was easiest to look to Connie because, he had the job in the borough. He was able to focus his attention to that job, and it made it easier for the rest of us to follow his lead. And I appreciate it, and thank you, Connie. And I also have a plaque for you. Presented to Connie MacDonald, C10. This is where old age kicks in here. Thank you for your 20 years as Ellwood City Fire Chief. Your time and efforts toward the Franklin Township VFD and its members and community will always be appreciated and remembered. Frisco Firefighters of Franklin Township.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Chief. As I mentioned before, we do have a lot of fire chiefs in the audience here, and quite a few representing the county of Lawrence. With that, I'm going to ask the fire chief of Scott Township, Jack Hitchin, to come up here. He has a presentation from the Lawrence County Commissioners that they were not able to attend, so I asked him if he could do the presentation.
Like I said, never had an opportunity to work a fire scene with Connie, but through the county association and the county government, worked with Connie many years. Every Wednesday, first Wednesday of the month at the county association, we know Connie's going to be there and have everything ready for us to get our meetings going and stuff. And everybody looks to Connie to have his organization skills there and everything for us and to keep our meeting going. And like I say, also representing the county commissioners, Connie, I'd like to present you with this proclamation. And thank you for your years of service.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jack. We still got a long ways to go. I'm going to sneak in here myself. At this time, I'm going to put on a different hat. I'm representing the Ellwood City Area Chamber of Commerce. A few years ago, the Chamber of Commerce started a program, the PIE program, Pride in Ellwood City Area. And through the last couple years, we've had a few projects around town. One was a litter campaign, and some other the tour of Ellwood City that included the I believe it was the 4th and 5th graders in the Ellwood City School District and the Riverside Beaver County School District, which was a huge success. And I believe next year it's going to go into the higher grades as we go along. With Connie retiring and all the things that he's done for the borough of Ellwood City and also the surrounding communities, the Chamber of Commerce at the last Board of Directors meeting thought it would be real appropriate to present Connie with probably the God Pie Award. There's a lot of stuff on here, but basically it recognizes the many years of service as Chief of the Ellwood City Fire Department, as well as your continued support and service to the community. This service emphasizes the pride in Ellwood City. On behalf of the board and the entire membership of the Ellwood City Area Chamber, thank you. Okay, I also have a former employee of Connie's at the fire department, and he asked if he could say a few words, so I'd like to have Rick Plasmar come up here.
Thank you. First off, I want to know if anybody reacted the way I did when I got the invitation for this. I walked down to my mailbox, pulled a mail out. As many of you know, I love gambling. So I'm leaping through my mail. Meadows, Rivers, Mountaineer. And there's this little envelope in there, invitation size. So I flip it over, addressed to me. And I see up in the top corner, it's from Todd Pahusky. And I said, damn, he's finally going to do it. He's going to get married. I ripped that thing open so fast. And I looked at it and I went, a dinner for Connie? I was so upset. But I am glad I came, Connie. I know you appreciate it. But anyway, my other story is, it was a cold night, and we cannot remember the date. I can tell everybody's getting old because I asked Steve Bailey, when was this fire? He can't remember. I asked Mark McDivitt. He can't remember. I asked Denny Brew at work. He can't remember. Anyway, I was working the desk 3 to 11 at Ellwood, and the Ellwood guys decided they were going to go down to Beaver and check out their lockers. They were going to put lockers in our station. So it was probably around, I don't know, 8 o'clock at night or somewhere around there, 7:30, 8 o'clock. I had a guy come in the station. I had Scotty Cortez with me. I had a guy in the station, he comes in, "You got a big fire on Lawrence Avenue." I said, "What?" He says, "You got a big fire on Lawrence Avenue." I could hardly understand him. Just then the phone rang. Some lady says, "Hey, you got a fire at the Salvation Army on Lawrence Avenue." I said, "Okay, we'll tone it out." So I told Scotty, "Put the door up, start the truck up. I'm going to tone it out," because that's when we used to tone everybody out. And the phone rang again. And there was a guy on there, and he says, "Hey, the Emporium's on fire." And I'm going, "Holy cow, this is 2 doors down." I said, "I'm losing the whole block. And these guys are down in Beaver." So we get in the truck, we go down around the bend, and flames are just flying everywhere. So we called, I called LEOC and them, and they toned out Zilly for us for an aerial. I had Mark McDivitt, he come up and help me in the front of the building. I had Steve, he's in the back. And here I find out about an hour into the fire when these guys show up, they're at Eaton Park in Bear Falls eating pie and dinner. They're not even down in Beaver. So
We left Beaver, and I'm going to clarify.
okay, here we go. Here we go.
I was the only person eating dinner. Everybody else was eating the pie.
Okay.
But I was there. I wasn't with them. I was actually here at a county meeting.
Well, I'm glad you guys finally showed up. And this is why this mutual aid around here works the way it does, because, like I said, I had Mark out front with me, and I had Steve, and we had Wayne, and we had Zilly, and we took care of it while these guys were taking care of themselves. So, Connie, thanks. Appreciate working with you, and thanks for everything you did.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask our state representative, Jarrett Gibbons.
Of course, I always get stuck after the guy with the funny stories. So I'm sorry I don't have any really great stories to tell, at least that funny about Connie. Certainly, I growing up in Ellwood City, I remember Connie even back when I was in grade school. It was around the time he was taking over. That was only a few years ago. But so I remember him coming around as I was a student. Certainly, he was always involved in making sure that the young people knew about fire safety. I remember programs that him and many of our departments did in our schools and in our communities. And now in the last few years since taking over as the state representative, Connie has certainly been a great help to me and to our community. He's come out for events that we've done to help, for whether it was young people in our children's fairs or our senior citizens. He's out there, certainly, if nothing else, pushing his program, the program locally about the smoke detectors. And I'm sure we're going to hear numbers. I know Connie keeps good track of his numbers of how many he's put in, though the number we'll never know is how many lives he's saved with that. But I know it's many, many lives in our Ellwood community have been saved by the smoke detectors he's put in, and I know we've referred many people over to him in our community. When we found them, especially a lot of our seniors and a lot of young families with kids, to make sure that they're taken care of. And so I appreciate what he's done there with that program. It's been a help to us to be able to help people who need that safety, who need that protection. And really tonight, I've always known that Connie was a great leader in the firefighting community in the Ellwood City area. And I've always really thought of kind of the Ellwood City community as not just being the borough, but being everyone, being Franklin and Wayne and North Swickley and all the way out to Wampum and all of these communities around. And it's great to see all the different departments coming in to honor Connie tonight. I see him out at the various events that the departments have each year. He does the circuit with me of all the dinners each year to go out and recognize all of our firefighters. And I always see Connie there with me, really being there to represent all the community. It's great to see how much of a leader he has been, and I know he's going to be greatly missed for all of the great things he's done in leading the fire community here in the greater Ellwood City area for the last 20 years. So So I just want to say, Connie, on behalf of myself and behalf of the residents of the 10th District and really all the people in this area, thank you for your 20 years of service as fire chief and your 47 years as a firefighter in Ellwood City. And we really appreciate it. I do have a citation from the House of Representatives. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but it gives a little bit of your biography, and certainly talks about your years of service. But there's always the resolve line that I really like to read. It's now, therefore, the House of Representatives of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania pays tribute to Chief Connie R. MacDonald for his many years of loyalty and commitment to the Ellwood City Volunteer Fire Department. Proudly notes his record of exemplary service in keeping with the highest ideals and traditions of this Commonwealth. And certainly, I think we've heard tonight and know from all of our experiences that you have certainly done that. So I want to congratulate you and thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jarrett. Also on hand, we have, like to call up our State Senator, Elder Vogel.
Thank you. Good evening. It's great to be with you here this evening. I sort of kind of know what Connie goes through. My dad was a volunteer fireman for many years for Big Knob Fire Department, and when a fire whistle blows, whether it's day or night or whenever you go, and whether you're the chief in a town or whether you're a volunteer fireman out in the countryside, you go. And I understand the commitment it takes to do that, and to do that for 47 years is a lot of commitment to do that, and to be the chief for 20 years is a lot of commitment as well. I know my mother and I got stuck milking cows quite a few times because my dad left when the siren blew, so that's the way it was. But I understand the commitment, and it's a great, be able to do that, and I can appreciate the commitment you had to do that for 47 years. And I have a citation as well from the Senate of Pennsylvania. It's pretty much the same as what Jared had, so in the save time, I won't read it, but congratulations, sir, and appreciate all your years of hard work. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Senator. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Connie. I think he has a few words he'd like to say.
I do have prepared remarks, but I caution you that even though there's a bunch of pages here, the reason there's a bunch of pages is the type is very big. The older you get, the type gets bigger, so you have more pages. And first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. As you can see, our family is well represented, and I'll introduce them. This is my little brother Gene from Zanesville, Ohio, and his wife Betty. And next to him is, next to them is Joy Lee and Jerry McCautry, my sister Joy Lee. And then over here, Gene's son Tim, and next to him, my sister Blanche and her husband John, my sister-in-law Carol, my brother Merle, and his extended family. Sometimes when you do things, you can't, and so I still go to those meetings. Actually, I got Sam involved, and he's going to the meetings now with me. But with many of those organizations, the young people don't have the time to spend. So old guys, I guess, we're going to be there till we keel over or whatever. The next day, you already met the guys at the next table, except for the guy in the end is Chuck Stelter. Chuck Stelter's with North Beaver, and he's a longtime Lawrence County firefighter. And the back table there, you met Jack Hitchin from Scott, and two guys from Princeton, George Johnson and Doug McGill. The guys from Perry, Franklin. I also want to recognize Dick Strickeisen, who's, you heard me getting the accolades for the smoke detectors, but, I only did the paperwork. In many cases, I did the paperwork and made sure the detectors were there, but Dick and Don Covert were my guys that did most of that. They did the initial rush. When I needed them done, they went and did them. And another guy that I want to recognize is Denny Main. Denny was my chef. Chief is CHIEF and chef is CHEF. He's just important as the guy with the eye, but he did many of the dinners, and whenever I needed something, whenever I needed food, he could get it, and he actually is a very good cook, and I appreciate his efforts. Sitting next to him is the borough secretary, Linda Pulowski List. I actually hired her as the secretary when I was doing code and zoning many years ago, and she's now the borough secretary. I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize John Hausholder. John's probably the one responsible for that fire truck, or for the chief's car, the Suburban that's up on the corner of the table here with the telephone pole in the back. You know, one night I did the telephone pole stepped in behind the truck out in Franklin Township, and John won't let me forget that. And John's been a good help over the years. He's a daily visitor at the fire station, and we have all kind of discussions on a variety of topics, I assure you. It's not easy to serve as a chief of a fire department in this day and age, but I was blessed with the full support of Lori, my wife Lori, who's over here taking pictures, and my extended family, and surrounded for the most part with dedicated, hardworking volunteers. I continued the excellent mutual aid system in this area, and incidentally, that started many years ago, but one of the ways it started was Dick Sturkeisen was squad captain, and I was his assistant, and we had a 1969 Ford van that we had a cot in the back, and we started going out to the townships with that, and that evolved into more things that we now do today. We were providing medical coverage for the townships. For the most part, Mark McDivitt, Steve Bailey, Wes Cunningham, Mark Sutherland, and Mark's dad Dale were the chiefs that I dealt with. We had a good relationship. We never worried about what it said on the back of your coat. We simply were concerned with taking care of the people that needed our help, whether it be pumping cellars or fighting fire or getting people out of trees or whatever. We all worked together to do what we had to do. And those guys have my utmost respect, and I certainly appreciate their service to their communities and to Ellwood City. And I do find it interesting that some departments in the northern part of the county are now using a system similar to ours and are happy with how it works, but I will say in the southern part of the county we've been doing that for almost 40 years. The fire chief job requires cooperation and give and take, and I'm proud to have been a part of the efforts in this area. I've also been lucky to have the complete backing of all the borough managers, from David Turner, Dave Stramella, Maury Waltz, Tom Vicari. Did I miss any, Linda? Okay. And I've been fortunate. The borough has really supported the fire department during my tenure. When I asked for something, I usually got it, but I didn't get everything. One of the things that I tried to get over the years was a diesel exhaust system for the fire station, and we could never get a grant to do that, and I couldn't convince the borough that they really needed to do it anyhow. But let me tell you a quick story about fire trucks. And this is no affront to Perry Township, but one of the stories about buying the aerial truck. And we spent a couple years deciding what truck we needed, and came up with the specs and everything. And I actually had Lori go over the specs and ask me some questions as to what she thought, because I'm dealing with a council of 7 people that are all lay people, and they really don't know much about it. And so I had a volume of information about that thick, and I was ready for the council meeting, and thinking that, you know, they're going to want to know this, and they're going to want to know why we need air conditioning, and why do we need a bell, and all those things. And so I ended up going to the meeting and coming out really disappointed for 2 reasons. Number one, I thought they should have been more concerned about and should have been asking questions. And number 2, the only question that they had, and like I said, no affront to Perry, but they said, it's not going to be that god-awful green, is it? and I thought to myself, you know, here we are buying a 500, you know, in 1996, a $528,000 fire truck, and that was the only question I had. I thought, but those are the kind of things that we do, and we were dealing with borough government, and borough government, like township governments, are different. But one of the things that I was able to get, and we started out at 5,000 or 6,000, and now we're up getting 17,000 from the borough annually. But including that, they pay for everything else. We're a line item in the borough budget, and as a volunteer fire department, we don't have to worry about it. But let me go over the past 20 years and some things that I've had a part in. But remember, it takes many people to do the work. I facilitated a lot of things, but it took other people to do the work. The Knox box system, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but early in my career, I found out that we had a box in the fire station in Engine 1 that had keys from everywhere in town. And there is a system out there, the Knox company makes a key that there's a box that we put on the building, and that key contains the keys to that building, and we're able to go into that building without having to wait for somebody. We have about 30 to 35 installations throughout town now, which makes it a lot easier, especially when you have automatic alarms. Mark McDivitt talked about thermal imaging cameras. Let me tell you a little story about that. We did go out and raise the money, and one of the things that I was surprised with is it was in May, and I was going to the high school to judge senior projects. And we had a call about 11:30, and I didn't have any lunch. And those of you know me that every day we eat lunch, including Dr. Charlie Ziegler is one of the guys I eat with, and Don Reese also. And Don Reese is sent his regrets. He can't be here. He's in Las Vegas with his son at the Magicians Convention. But I wasn't able to eat lunch, and I grabbed a candy bar out of the vending machine in the fire station, started eating it, and these three ladies came in. And they were from the women's club. And they said, we want to buy a thermal imaging camera. How much do they cost? And I said, $18,000. We want to buy one. Here, they had gotten some money from an estate, from a lady, to build a building. And they said, we're never going to build a building. And so they gave us a check for $18,000. The irony of it, and the thing that hurt me was, I knew this. I had to be in high school. I had to be at the high school in 5 minutes. So I left the fire station knowing that I had an $18,000 check, and I can't tell anybody because I'm sitting at the high school listening to these kids doing senior projects. You know? One of those things that you had to do. And talking about thermal imaging cameras, we had them early on, and we actually had more cameras. Each of the fire departments in the area had one on their first aid apparatus. We had more cameras than the city of Pittsburgh had for several years. And that's because we all worked together. The Sutphen tire that we got in 1996, and like I mentioned, we spent over $500,000. The borough spent over $500,000. It was the first new Sutphen tire in Lawrence County. And if you look around, Newcastle now bought one just after we did. And after Cranberry came down here and looked at the versatility of our truck, Cranberry also has one almost the same thing. I mentioned that Woodside Avenue Fire compressed air foam system, which is a modern way to integrate air, water, and foam. And when you're short on manpower, it's easier to handle the hose in that. We installed the first integrated system in Lawrence and Beaver counties. We were also early on, and John Ryder from Sharon is the guy who supplied us with a blitz fire. Because we don't have a lot of people, especially in the daytime, we try to make it easy that the paid guy, the guy on duty, could institute some things. That some areas of our town have houses that are 2 feet apart, and so we have what's called a blitz fire with a 50-foot section of hose that the operator can take off and put down and dump 200 or 300 gallons of water in a minute, which works real well. We also have a hydraulic generator on engine 1, which we don't have to worry about starting it. The fire safety birthday parties that Denny talked about, and this not only involves kids. The last one I did just after I retired was and it was Rotary that auctions this off with their as a fundraiser. The queen of the Red Hat Society bought the birthday party. So my last birthday party was the Red Hat Society, and they certainly weren't children. I tailored my involvement to them. Difficult. Some of those women had lived in the town all their life and had never been in a fire station. They had never used a fire extinguisher, and they got to do that. So it was fun. And as Denny mentioned, the kids really enjoy it. Not only it's a hands-on thing, they get to climb in fire trucks, and they also learn something about fire safety. And even though I'm in my 60s, I still, at the end of the fire safety birthday party, I get down and do stop, drop, and roll. It is harder to get up, and sometimes I have to ask Todd to help me get up, but I still do it. The smoke detector installation program, we've placed over 4,000 smoke detectors in homes throughout the Ellwood City area. And I haven't told this very often. And I'm not sure I can do this without breaking up, but I want to tell you the story on what actually happened. At 5:55 a.m. on a Sunday morning, we got a call to a house on Todd Avenue with entrapment. When I got to the scene, just after the engine pulled up, I didn't see any fire. I did a 360, which I'm supposed to do, and I saw very little fire in the house. The neighbor said they slept upstairs. And so our initial crew went in. Within 5 minutes, they found him. And I remember Steve Bailey being there. They brought the first baby out. Steve started CPR. They brought the second baby out. CPR was started. They brought the lady out. They went to the hospital. The one baby lived for about 2 weeks. 2 children and a mother who died in the fire. That mother served on a session at church with me. When they moved into the new house, I took 3 smoke detectors in a box to the meeting and gave them to her for her new house. After the fire, those smoke detectors are still in the church. I decided there that we weren't going to give smoke detectors out anymore. We were going to put them in. And so that's resulted in 4,000. We've had a couple saves. Just 3 houses down from where the fire occurred. In the middle of the night, or not in the middle of the night, about 11 o'clock at night, there was a fire caused by cigarettes in the first floor. A smoke detector that we installed in the second floor woke up the lady who was in her 70s. Her son was downstairs sleeping. He did the smoking. He set the fire. She called down and woke him up after that smoke detector went off. And they got out. They actually got out on the porch roof, and the police got a ladder, and they got off the porch roof. But that was a save. Updated fire radio system. We're ready to switch to narrowband, which many areas are just in the county are just changing over to, but we held off with the low band as long as we could, even though the county wouldn't support us. And during my tenure, we also retired KGC 792 after being on the air since 1953. If you look at one of the pictures over here, there's a picture when it was installed. But we were able to get a repeater and a base station down here, so we're ready to go with narrowband, and everybody else is getting on board with that. There were a couple live burns that we were able to have in town, and we had a fire at Pelicanos, which is on Woodside Avenue down from my house. People had smelled gas in the morning at 8 o'clock, and they didn't report it. Not the people who lived in the house, people driving by, it wasn't reported. At 9:30, the house blew up. The guy was in the basement. He should have been blown to pieces, but he wasn't. He was behind a door. The mother and daughter were upstairs. They climbed out the window. I got there pretty quick, and I was completely relieved when he came across the driveway and said, "Everybody's out." But for the next couple hours, we fought the fire. And we actually let the gas burn, and it burned around the foundation of the house for another half an hour. And we have a video that shows that, the gas burning, that gas was so much in the yard that it burned for a half an hour to 45 minutes, simply the gas that was in there. And so I urge you, if you do have a gas leak, report it. But what we were able to do there is they actually donated to us. So the mutual aid departments, we had fires there for a week, and then on a Saturday we burn it down. And we don't often get to do that in town. We also did that on Bridge Street, where we had several burns during the week and then burn it down. But we can't do that today. In order to burn a house today in perfect condition, we have to get an engineer to certify that it doesn't have asbestos in it. And so you have to pay, I think Jack paid $2,500 to get a house ready so they could burn it. I don't think it's not the kind of training. I think that kind of training was a lot better for our people than what we get today. The volunteer fire department in Ellwood, we obtained a lot of grants throughout my years as chief, and that department is on solid financial footing. In our relief association, we purchased the best health and accident insurance and latest protective gear. And I was going to say something, but I won't. And the big thing that I'm proud of is that we have no firefighter line of duty deaths in the last 20 years. And we've remembered Paul and Ernie on every date on the year. When that December 4th, when it happened with the memorial service. And we've had no major injuries to firefighters. But I will talk about one minor injury that we had to a finger. And it's a common joke in Ellwood that finger injury resulted in a volunteer getting a new truck through our insurance. Not really, but it seemed like that. The particular guy was off a long time. Some special moments that I want to cover. The rescue of the light wing aircraft pilot from a tree on the Rod and Gun property on the Walton Road using the old Aero Chief. This was a Saturday night. The guy was hanging upside down for 45 minutes. And although it's not a common practice to drive a fire truck, especially one weighing about 25 tons, into a field and put it up and get a guy out of a tree. But we were able to do that. And you would think that a guy would really be happy that we got him out of that tree, but he wasn't. He was mad because we would not get his plane down. And we're in the practice of saving people, and I made the decision that we weren't going to get the plane down. He had to find someone, and he was not happy with us. In addition to smoke detectors, we also put in carbon monoxide detectors, and there's a save that I like to talk about. And this is a lady who recently passed away, but she lived at the end of Franklin Avenue, and I received a community development block grant to put in 100 smoke detectors, and we put them in 100 carbon monoxide detectors, and we put them in. And she had baked cookies downstairs all day, and the call came in. I think I was at lunch, and went up there and walked in the front door, and the meter went sky high, and told her to come out in the front porch and we'll talk a little bit. And the levels of carbon monoxide were very high. She didn't realize that she had put new windows in her house, and when you put new windows in, the house becomes sealed. There's no air getting in like you had when you had the old windows, and the air used to blow in and out. And although she had baked cookies in her cellar all those years, her house was full of carbon monoxide. And so one of the neat things was she also worked at Holy Redeemer making spaghetti, and at the Carpenters Project fundraiser that we have at the Catholic Center, she pointed out to the other ladies that they saved my life by putting that CO detector. There was also a carbon monoxide save, not in Ellwood, but in Shenango Township. I've done for many years, I have spoken during Fire Prevention Week at the First United Methodist Church, at their Sunday school. And I guess I was pretty strong in indicating that they really needed carbon monoxide detectors. And a guy came up to me and said that his furnace malfunctioned and they probably would have died. but they had a CO detector. I woke them up in the middle of the night, and they were able to, get out. One other interesting thing, and those guys from the department, I was the victim on many occasions by Officer Parsons, who thought it was funny to get the fire chief in a variety of ways every April Fool's Day for about 5 years. If you know Parsons, and some of the guys can relate some of the stories, I can't believe that a policeman would go to that extreme to the things that he did to make sure that he got me on April Fool's Day. And there's many more things that I could talk about, and more than one person has suggested that I write a book, and I am considering it. As I've reminded you many times and other people many times, that we have to bear the brunt of destruction and death caused by fire, but we also have to enjoy the good times, like this gathering and the parades for the winning high school teams, mainly baseball, when we made a lot of noise. And I took a little bit of heat because why did you do it at 11:30 at night? Why did you, we thought there was a big thing going on. And my response was, we have to take the good and the bad. And our guys need to have those good things once in a while. So I plan to continue to serve the county and western state levels, and I'll be available to help with needed. So with the grace of God, the love of my wife Lori, and your help and friendship, I have lived the dream for 20 years. And I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. Thanks.
Thank you. Like to again thank everybody for coming tonight. We do have some mementos and photos that you're welcome to take a look at behind us on the table. And like to have some folks, if you can, stick around and have a little visit with everybody. So thank you for all coming out tonight.
Let me just cover one thing. If you haven't seen the picture of the 1958 photo with my uncle Merle, who my brother Merle was named after, and me standing there looking alike, posing alike in 1958 when the guys were jumping into the net. There's two pictures there that are real interesting. I think that picture and then the picture that shows 4 Ellwood City Fire Chiefs in one picture. Chet Rogers, who served from 1941 to 1960, Chuck West, who served from 1960 to 1970, Bob Dambaugh, who served from 1970 to 1975, and then me are in one picture, which is pretty interesting. Thanks. Thanks.